Howdy my totally tubular gamers, we're back with, you guessed it, another ranking video. Thanks for coming back to the channel, and today we're going to be ranking some Game of the Years. Now, a couple weeks ago I ranked every game that had won Game of the Year from the Game Awards, you know, Jeff Keighley's show. And that video absolutely popped off, and so I want to give a big thank you if you watched even 30 seconds of that video. I really do appreciate it. But a lot of people said, you know, you ranked all the games that won Game of the Year. Why don't you do your own ranking? Why don't you rank your own personal Game of the Years? And that's really what today's video is about. It's going to be a very personal, subjective list where I rank my personal Game of the Years for the last 10 years, 2014 to now. We're going to be ranking them from worst to best, but clearly there's no bad game here. It's just going to be best to even bester, because I don't know what else to call that. Now, I said it once, I'll say it again. This is my list. It is very personal, it is subjective, it is based entirely on my own taste, and this list was crazy hard to make. Like, I really was just splitting hairs here and going back and forth like crazy. And ultimately, it really is just how I feel. There is no other list that is going to be the same as mine. It is that subjective and personal, and so before you go to dunk on me, tell me I have the worst taste on planet Earth, at least tell me what your list looks like, or what some of your favorite games of the last 10 years are. And yeah, we're just doing the last 10 years. You know, maybe in the future, if there's enough demand, I'll do like every year in gaming, if that sounds good. You know what? Just let me know down below what kind of lists you want to see, what your favorite games are. Tell me something. I'm always lurking down there. Please like, share, comment, subscribe. We got the Patreon and the Super Thanks going on. Any support is truly greatly appreciated. Shorter intro this time. Let's just get right into it. Of these 10 games, which do I think is, I guess, the weakest? That sounds bad. What's number 10? Now, nothing says personal subjective list more than my number 10, South Park: The Stick of Truth, which in my opinion was the best game I played in 2014. Okay, maybe not the best, but it was my favorite game from 2014, and it's my pick for Game of the Year. Now, most media outlets in general coverage had Dragon Age Inquisition as their 2014 Game of the Year, and while that's a good game, it wasn't my favorite game from that year. Other great games like Sunset Overdrive, Mario Kart 8 were also considered, but in the end, yeah, I'm going with South Park: The Stick of Truth. I absolutely love South Park. It's my favorite TV show outside of SpongeBob. Like, it just feels like they rarely ever miss. I still watch it regularly even nowadays. So when they announced this game and how it looked and what it was going to be, I was immediately crazy excited. And then when I played this game finally, I remember waiting quite a bit for it, but when I finally got to play it, oh, it was so good. I remember I played through the entire game in like a weekend and then immediately started a new game with a different class because I just loved it so much. Now, I'm not going to come out here and say that this game is the most deep or rewarding or challenging or engaging gameplay, especially not even for 2014, but I really appreciated what it did. I really enjoyed the gameplay for what it was. Yeah, it was a bit more casual on the RPG side. The battles weren't the most involved. They did have a Super Mario RPG Paper Mario element to them where, you know, you'd actually have to interact during the battle, which I always like. It keeps you engaged during the battles, but this game had a lot more going for it with its story, the writing, the humor, the presentation, and how it really felt like a couple episodes or maybe a movie of South Park that you got to take part in. I really love that. I enjoyed exploring around the town. This has got to be one of the only times that the town of South Park is actually like created on a map. I thought that was really cool. And then when it comes to how funny this game is, you know, I think South Park's hilarious, but this game goes over the top. It did not disappoint. It is truly one of the funniest games I've ever played. Like, every single time I even see like half the cutscenes in this game, I'm just cracking up. And part of me just still can't believe that this is actually in a game. Now, 2014, it was a pretty decent to good year for games. There was this game. I'd say my second pick was probably Mario Kart 8. But also that was the Wii U version, and I think the Switch version is a lot better. There was Sunset Overdrive, there's obviously Dragon Age Inquisition. There was a lot of good games in 2014, but my favorite, it really is The Stick of Truth. There was even the sequel, The Fractured Butthole, but to be completely honest, I don't think that game is as good as this one. I didn't love the battles, and I don't think the humor is as on point as this game is. Still, if you're a fan of South Park, you enjoy South Park at all, this game is really a must play. And then if you enjoy RPGs, I think you're going to enjoy the game as well. It's dirt cheap. Like, the game is super cheap nowadays, so there really is no excuse to not get it. And at number 9, we have Uncharted 4, which is my game for 2016. Now, 2016 had some pretty great games. Overwatch is the first one that comes to mind, which did win Game of the Year, and part of me really wants to say Overwatch again. That's probably my favorite game from the year, but Overwatch 1 literally does not exist now, so I'm not going to count that. Aside from that though, there were some other great games like Titanfall 2, Dark Souls 3, Dishonored 2, and I even did enjoy Final Fantasy 15, but Uncharted 4, it's my favorite game from that year. Now, I like the Uncharted series, always have. I played the trilogy on PS3 when those games actually came out. I was pretty hyped for every single one of them, and I was hyped for this game too. It was actually the game that made me get a PS4, it was this game. And yeah, I think it was worth it. Now, I have ranked all the Uncharted games, but spoiler alert here, I think Uncharted 4 is the best of the Uncharted games. It has my favorite story. I loved the interactions between Drake and his brother. I liked where the story went, and I liked how it was just a little different from the norm of the other Uncharted games. You know, the other Uncharted games can get a bit formulaic, and this one actually felt a little bit different. It also really does have some of the most incredible cinematic set pieces from not just the Uncharted series, but really any game. Like, some of the cinematic set pieces go crazy in this game, even nowadays, where I'm just like, sheesh, this is just going off the rails. I can't imagine how long it took them to make this. And then the presentation is just phenomenal. The game still looks fantastic. It looks amazing. Even nowadays, it looks phenomenal. And then the voice acting and all that, it's just superb. Uncharted 4 was a really great experience, and I think the moment-to-moment gameplay really does hold up well. It is the best shooting in the entire series. I like the action. I think this game has some really unique areas and levels that you go through. I like how you can go about encounters in a couple different ways. You can actually be stealthy. Sure, the stealth is pretty basic, but I like that it's there. I like the grappling hook and the rope. Like, the rope goes crazy in this game. The physics are really awesome on that thing. I enjoy driving the car. I like the environments, and again, the set pieces, they're more than solid enough. You know, Uncharted 4 might not be crazy innovative or imaginative from the other Uncharted games, really just Naughty Dog games in general, but in my opinion, it's the most refined, best experience in the Uncharted series. And if you haven't tried it by now and you like third-person shooters or cinematic games, I really recommend you try this one, because I think it's totally worth it. It's a really solid experience that I don't think you'll be forgetting anytime soon, especially the ending. I really like the send-off. Alright, we're already at the point where it's getting pretty hard to do this list, and I'm going back and forth a lot, but in the number 8 spot, at least for now, we have Psychonauts 2, which was my game of the year for 2021. Now, 2021 had some pretty solid games. Resident Evil Village, It Takes Two, Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart, but none of them hit as hard as Psychonauts 2 did for me. The original Psychonauts is without a doubt in my mind one of my favorite games of all time. I've played through the original Psychonauts several times. I love the game, from its gameplay to its world to its characters, how it develops its themes, and just where the game goes. Man, I love the original Psychonauts. So when they announced the sequel, I was pretty excited, but then we waited a long, like really long time. And we waited so long that by the time the game actually came out, I was like, I just hope it's good. But after playing all the way through it, no, it's not just good. It is fantastic. I can't believe it, but they made a game that is like just as good as the original. It is just as wacky and weird and creative and unique as the original game is, in a completely different way. You know, it's still about going into people's minds, and the game does continue the story of Psychonauts, which I think is really cool. You know, all these years later, we do finally get that sequel that was teased at the end of the first game, and I think the story is actually really great. I like where it goes, and I really love the characters. The characters of Psychonauts are so good. Like, Double Fine is really great when it comes to creating characters. Tim Schafer, really, and his team, whether it's Grim Fandango, Brutal Legends, Psychonauts, now Psychonauts 2, characters are always really well done in his games, and this game is no exception. All of the characters are great. There wasn't a single one I disliked, and I think the world building, the story, all of that is just excellent. I love how the game looks. I love the aesthetic this game has, and the gameplay is still really great stuff. It's a really tight, creative 3D platformer at the end of the day, and I know that 3D platformers might not be as in as they were in 1999 or 2000, but it still is one of my favorite genres, and I had a blast with this game. It felt so fresh and unique compared to so many other 3D platformers or just modern games in general. Like, this game felt really just different from everything at the time. It has some really creative levels, some awesome set pieces. I even enjoy the combat and the boss fights in this game. Like, this game just proved over and over just truly how unique and different it was. Like, it was such a memorable experience, and maybe I'm just a fanboy, maybe I'm way too nostalgic for Psychonauts, but it really just hit home with me. It really hit hard, more so than any other game I played that year. I loved so much about this game, and it made me really happy to see how many people really enjoyed Psychonauts 2 as well. You know, I remember growing up with Psychonauts, and most people, like 9 out of 10 people went, I've never even heard of that. Nowadays, Psychonauts is a little bit more mainstream. I'd still say it's underrated, but you know, it's got a little clout, and with that, I totally recommend it to anybody that likes platformers or is looking for such a unique experience. It doesn't get much more unique than this. And in the number 7 spot, I'm throwing a bit of a curveball all, we have Yakuza Like a Dragon as my 2020 game of the year. Now, this was an incredibly hard year to decide. There was a lot of really fantastic games in 2020. Like, a lot of bad shit happened in 2020, but the games that came out this year were phenomenal. I was ready to give this year just a three-way tie, honestly, and depending on the day of the week, I will totally say something different. I've said my favorite game from 2020 is Final Fantasy VII Remake, I've said it's Doom Eternal, and I've said it's Yakuza Like a Dragon, but on this day that I'm recording this audio, I am going with Yakuza Like a Dragon. Tomorrow, it might be Final Fantasy VII Remake, and if it is, well, I'm going to change this video, but as of right now, it is Yakuza Like a Dragon. Aside from these three games, though, there were so many other fantastic games in 2020. Hades, Ghost of Tsushima, a certain Naughty Dog game. There was a lot of amazing games in 2020, but yes, today, right now, I'm going with Yakuza Like a Dragon. I love the Yakuza series. I've been a mega fan for well over 10 years. I've gotten every game it released. Like, I just truly love this series, and when they said they were making it a full-on RPG with a new protagonist, new area, I was so hype. I love RPGs. I was really excited to see where they would go, and this game did not disappoint. It absolutely did not. I know a lot of people don't really care for it because it's not the usual action beat-em-up gameplay, and it doesn't have Kiryu as the protagonist, but that did not bother me in the slightest. I thought the gameplay was excellent. I think this game really actually works as an RPG. I like the turn-based gameplay. I like how crazy it gets, especially with all the moves and different jobs. I love the level of customization you can have over the characters. The characters themselves are excellent. The story is so good. Ichiban is such a great protagonist. The way everything progresses, it is nothing short of phenomenal. It's like one of my favorite stories in any game. I just really enjoyed it. And then the presentation's really great. One of the best looking Yakuza games. The soundtrack, I'm still regularly listening to it. It's just so damn good. There's just nothing that hits the same way like this game does soundtrack wise. The soundtrack's great. The story's great. The characters are great. I love the gameplay. This game has a ton of depth to it. Whether it's in the battle mechanics or the boss fights or the side stuff you do, there's so much side content in this game. There's like games in games. It feels like there's so much side content. I put well over 60, 70 hours into this game and I still didn't see everything. On top of that, it's hilarious and it's just really one of the most unforgettable gaming experiences I've ever had. Like, I will always cherish the first time I played through this game. I was so intrigued, engaged, and it was so much fun. And at the end of the day, that's sometimes what it's all about. All the other games in 2020 I've mentioned are all great games. They're fantastic games, and I could easily see why each one of them would be someone's game of the year. But for me, at least right now, it's Yakuza Like a Dragon. I love this game. It's like my favorite Yakuza game of them all, that or Zero. Either way, the Yakuza series is really great, and I have no problem highly recommending Like a Dragon. Seriously, it's so good. In the number 6 spot, we have Sekiro, which is my game of the year for 2019. I've talked about Sekiro a few times on the channel, and it was really hard to actually decide a 2019 game of the year. It was a real toss-up between this and the Resident Evil 2 remake, but I really don't want to have a remake as my favorite game of the year. And that's no slight on the RE2 remake's quality. It really is one of the best remakes ever, and it's a fantastic game and an excellent horror experience, but Sekiro's my choice. Now, when it comes to Sekiro, I don't really know what there is left to talk about with this game. It is a fantastic game. Developed by From Software, the developers behind Dark Souls and eventually Elden Ring. It's an excellent action-adventure, technically hack and slash that sees this ninja protecting this boy and you getting into some real shit. This is one of the most challenging but rewarding experiences I've ever had with a video game. There really is no game like Sekiro. Like I've said in the past, the closest I think is like Wolong, but even that is still kind of nothing like Sekiro. Like, this is such a relentless, challenging, engaging game with some of, if not like the best sword combat you'll find in any video game. Like, this game is tense. It is relentless. It does not let up. Like, it's not messing around. This game has no problem just wiping the floor with you and telling you to get good. This really is the get good game. Like, it's that difficult. You can't summon. There's no easy way out. It's just challenging. But when you finally overcome some of this game's biggest challenges, like the monkey or the final boss, it is unbelievably rewarding. Like, I don't know if I've ever had such a rewarding experience when I beat some of this game's challenges. Like, you have to really get just that good to beat it, and there's no other experience like it. On top of that, you can do so many cool things in this game. Like, you feel like a total badass. The controls and feel and aesthetic to this game are just excellent. I love this game. I've played through it more than once because it's just that good. And if you're looking for a challenge, if you like hack and slash games or action adventure games, you're at all a fan of Dark Souls or anything adjacent to it, this really is a must play. There's a reason so many people still talk as highly about it as they do. There just hasn't been a game like it since, and I don't know if there ever will be. I'd love to see a Sekiro 2. I think they could go absolutely nuts with a sequel. The sword combat is already so good. I'd love to see what they do in the future, but that's a future me thing. Right now, I'm telling you, this game is totally worth playing. And in the number 5 spot, we have The Witcher 3, which is my game of the year for 2015. This one, yeah, it seemed pretty open and shut case, to be honest. The Witcher 3 was like every publication's game of the year. At least it felt like that. And that's not to discount the other games of 2015. There were some really amazing games in there, like MGS5, like Bloodborne, and I could totally see those games being someone's game of the year, but nothing hit like Witcher 3 did, in my opinion. The Witcher 3 is one of my favorite games, legit, of all time. It's a fantastic RPG, and it was, not to sound too corny, but just an unforgettable experience. I love so much about this game. I know a lot of people aren't fans of aspects of Witcher 3. They don't like the combat, or they think the story's boring, or they think certain acts aren't all that exciting, but not me. I loved like everything about this game. I love the story of Geralt and Ciri. I like how it's not go save the world, and it's a little bit more low-key than that, but there still is stakes. I like where it goes. I like the ending. And I love how it pays a lot of tribute and fan service to the 2 previous Witcher games. In fact, on PC, you can even import your save, which I think is really cool. I like the gameplay. I think the open world is great. I love how the game mixes it up with different areas. I truly do like all of the areas, from Novigrad to Skellige. I love all that shit. It kept things interesting and different and exciting and engaging throughout. And then the combat, you know, some people have said it's floaty, it's boring, it's unexciting, it's not fun. I very much disagree. I like the hack and slash gameplay. I like how there's a lot of variety with the combat, but the thing I like the most is that you can actually be like a full-ass monster hunter. If you look at what the monsters are weak to, if you look at what your enemy's weak to, you can totally use that to your advantage. Doing your research actually pays off in this game. I love the hunts. There was just something about this game's quests that really hit different. Like, even the smallest of side quests are really good in this game. The quest design is nothing short of excellent. The quests all feel different from each other, and none of them feel like generic, boring side quests that you do just for filler. Like, they all actually felt fulfilling. And then on top of this, you have an excellent presentation. The game still looks great, and the music is just, it's beautiful. I love the music of Witcher 3. Like, this game, everybody and their mom has praised it to all hell, and I just did that as well, but there's a reason for it. The Witcher 3, it really is that good, and I don't know if CD Projekt Red will ever make a game that is as good as The Witcher 3. Oh, and this game was actually good at launch, so there's that too. But it really is one of those phenomenal 10 out of 10 experiences that I totally think is worth playing. And at number 4, we have Persona 5, which is my 2017 game of the year. Now, 2017 was nothing short of phenomenal, especially if you were a Nintendo fan. There was so many great Switch games in the first year of the Switch. Breath of the Wild, Super Mario Odyssey, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, Splatoon 2. There was a ton of great Nintendo games that year, and I played like all of them, but Persona 5 really is like my favorite game from that year. Maybe I just have a bit of a bias towards RPGs, but Persona 5 was my favorite experience that year. Persona 5 is really one of the best turn-based RPGs, one of the best JRPGs you could ever play. It's such a refinement on the SMT or Persona formula. Like, I love Persona 4, but this game's gameplay, in my opinion, is just way better. And on top of that, the story, the characters, the presentation, and especially the aesthetic are just amazing. Like, this game looks phenomenal. Like, I really love how this game looks. It feels like almost no other game looks like how this game does outside of other Persona games. It just looks so unique. It's so cool. It's just so great. But then the story is really great also. And when it comes to the cast of characters, there's not a bad one here. I love all the characters of this game. They're all really well written. They're developed. I enjoy all of them. Even the antagonists, they're all great. The story, the writing, the characters, the arcs they go through, the amount of depth they have, it's all really great stuff. It's really what kept me pushing through this long-ass game. Like, this is a long-ass game. The Persona games are not messing around. This game can easily take over 100 hours. It didn't take me that long, but it can easily take over 100 hours. But man, you'll be so sucked into the life sim elements. While I'm sure it's not everyone's cup of tea with how this game's paced, where, you know, you have the real-life school stuff and then you go into the dungeons and do the battles. I love this balance you have. And there were plenty of times where I was much more interested in what was going on in the life sim parts rather than the actual battles and dungeons. But the battles and dungeons are great also. You know, I didn't love the dungeons in older Persona games, but the dungeons are actually really great here. I think they're all really well designed. They're memorable. They're all different from each other. There's some unique gimmicks and puzzles here. I like the dungeons. The battles are just, yeah, they really are just fantastic. They're the best battles that the SMT series has maybe ever seen. This or Shin Megami Tensei 5, which basically is just this game's. Like, the battles are great. There's depth here. I love just how many different ways you can go about each battle. I really enjoy it. I really enjoy how this game's paced as well. It never feels like it's getting old or repetitive or stale. You're always doing something different. Something new comes up. They keep things interesting and engaging and exciting, and that's really a marvel. Most games are like a fraction of how long this game is, but this game keeps it up for as long as it does. It's impressive. I love it. Nowadays, the game has been re-released as the Royal version, which is even better somehow and longer. Like, this game, if you like RPGs, if you've had any mild interest in RPGs in general, this is just a no-brainer. It really is just a no-brainer. It's that good. And in the number 3 spot, we have Elden Ring, which was my 2022 game of the year. Now, 2022 was a really solid year for games. There was a lot of awesome games that year, like God of War Ragnarok, Horizon Forbidden West, and then how could anybody ever forget about Stray, the cat game? There was a lot of good games in 2022, but Elden Ring really just stood above them all by a wide margin, in my opinion. Elden Ring is one of the most unforgettable gaming experiences, and I wouldn't be surprised if people call it the game of the decade. Seriously, Elden Ring is that good. It really looks at the older Dark Souls games and evolves it, blows it up times like 5 to really create just one of the biggest games legit ever. It's like they took Dark Souls, they took Breath of the Wild, they threw in a bunch of crack, cocaine, whatever drug was needed to blow this shit up, and that's what we have. People have been telling me almost every day for the last 6 months how they have hundreds if not thousands of hours in Elden Ring, and it's not hard to see why. There are few game worlds that are this massive with this much to see and just this much content. Like, this game has so much to it, whether it's the combat, which has a lot of depth and options and ways to go about it, the amazing boss fights. In fact, there are so many boss fights. You know, most games have like, what, 6 or 7 boss fights? Elden Ring is fucking like 80. It has a ton of boss fights, a ton of interesting, memorable, challenging ones. There's so much to explore with this world. You're always rewarded. A ton of the areas are so different from each other. There's new challenges every corner, and it just never gets old. There's so much to this game. There's the multiplayer. There's so many different ways to go about everything. You can go in pretty much whatever order you want. The game can be super challenging, or you can grind it out, do the easier areas first, and make it a steady incline. The choice really is yours. Like, there are so many different ways to play Elden Ring. The game has an excellent presentation. There are some really memorable set pieces here in the game, and if you've had any interest in Dark Souls or Souls-likes and you haven't played Elden Ring, what are you doing? Like, genuine question here. What are you doing? Why have you not played Elden Ring? There's a reason everybody circle jerks for this game. It's because it's that good. Like, here I am. It's near the top of my list because I also think it's that good. It's my favorite game by From Software. From Software is an amazing developer, but Elden Ring really takes the crown for me. Games just don't get that much better than this. And if they somehow do, it's by the tiniest of hairs. Like, honestly, these top like 5 games, I could put them in almost any order. This is just how I'm feeling today. But what I can absolutely settle on is that they're all worth playing, especially Elden Ring. Like, it just is so good. There's so much to it. You will not regret trying this game. To anybody that really dislikes it, well, that's a shame because you're missing out on one of the best experiences you'll ever find in a video game. And in the number 2 spot, we have Baldur's Gate 3, which in my opinion is 2023's best game. I know, hot take incoming, really hot, unexpected take. We have Baldur's Gate 3. Okay, yeah, it's the opposite of unexpected. Everybody's been talking about Baldur's Gate 3, but there's been a lot of amazing games in 2023. I got a top 40. Yes, I've decided it's going to be a top 40 that's coming soon enough, going over all my favorite games from this year. But Baldur's Gate 3, it just hits so different. I've talked about this game several times now on the channel, but honestly, I could talk about it forever because it feels like there's low-key endless content with this game. You have one of the most rewarding experiences you'll ever find in a video game. Like, this game just has so much going for it. I've put so much time into this game because I've enjoyed it that much, from its amazing story, how your choices mean everything, some of the best, if not like the best companions you'll find in any game, rewarding deep combat, some of the best side content you'll find in any game, a ton of replayability. Like, there's really not much to dislike with this game. If you don't like turn-based games, you absolutely just cannot stand them for some reason, well, that is a real shame. You are absolutely missing out on one of the greatest experiences you could ever have with a game. Like, I don't know what else there is to honestly say at this point. The game is just so good in everything it does. I think the story's really interesting. It's not at all what I ever expected from a game like this. It's just really well done. They keep things intriguing. There's a lot of great twists. The antagonists are great. The heroes are great. Your party members just have so much to them. Like, there's so many layers. Like, forget Shrek's onion when it comes to layers with these. There's like 2 or 3 onions. Seriously, there's a ton to these party members. I know some of these party members better than my own fucking family. They're really great. I love how many different ways you can go about combat. There's a bunch of different classes. You can basically customize your entire party as well. You don't have to keep them what they are assigned to. I did the first time I played the game, but the second time, nah. You can make them whatever the hell you want, and you can have them all succeed. It's really great stuff. I love how the game mixes it up when it comes to its environments and what you'll be doing. It always does feel different. And I also like that this game doesn't just crap the bed at the end. You know, I've heard some people say they don't really care for Act 3, but not me. Like, I truly love Act 1. I think Act 2 is great. And then Act 3 is also awesome when you're at Baldur's Gate. I think it's really solid. I love how this game concludes. Like, it doesn't just crap the bed and drop things off at the last minute. Like, no, it has a good last act to the game. Larian keep consistently updating this game as well. It feels like almost bi-weekly. They're not just updating it with like patches and bug fixes, like they're adding more to the game still. And on top of that, there's so many different ways you can go about literally every single encounter. Like, the game has virtually infinite replayability. You could play through this game probably 8 times and you would see something different every single time, and there'd be a different way to go about it, assuming you played through the game differently. Now, a question I've been seeing people pose online is Baldur's Gate 3 the perfect game? No, a perfect game does not exist. This game has flaws. Every game has flaws, but this game is still a 10 out of 10 experience for me, and a 10 out of 10 isn't a perfect game. It just means it gets my highest recommendation. This game absolutely does, you know, call it my recency bias, but it's really high up on this list. I love this game. And here we have my top pick. We have Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, which was my game of the year of 2018, and out of all of these games on this list, it's my favorite game. I guess this is a good part to reiterate that this is my list. It is just my opinion based on my taste. What your top game is, it might not be this. It may be this, but it might not be. To give a little backstory, one of the first games I ever played was Melee back in the early 2000s. I absolutely adored it. I played a shit ton of it as a kid, then got Brawl when it came out, played an ass ton of that, got Wii U, played just way too much of that, and so you knew for Ultimate, I was going to be there day one, but I wasn't there just day one. I was crazy fucking excited for this game. I have like never been so excited for a game as I was for this. Pre-ordered instantly, play it on day one, and then just play the absolute piss out of it. I played so much of this game, especially when it came out. I had like a couple 12-hour sessions with this game. I just loved everything there was to love about this game. Don't get me wrong, you know, like I mentioned, every game has flaws. The online sometimes isn't that great with this game, but what this game does right, it absolutely does right. It is like my favorite fighting game. It's one of my absolute top favorite video games ever made, and it really is like my favorite Nintendo game ever. This game really just is the best of Smash Brothers. It has the best feel, the best controls, the most customization, it's the most satisfying, the best roster of characters, best stages, the most amount of depth, yada yada yada. It really never ends because this game just has so much to it. Like, I don't know how they could ever top this. I genuinely do not know how they could possibly top this with so many characters, how a ton of them feel different, how good it feels to play, just how much fun it is, I honestly have no idea. And it really is just some of the most fun I've ever had with a video game, whether it's with siblings, family members, partner, friends, best friends, enemies, goldfish, dog, some weird homeless guy I knew. Like, I've had so much fun with this game over the years, and I just keep coming back to it for a reason. There's like no game I've come back to as many times as this game in the last couple years, and that's for a reason. The game is that good. It just has so much to it. There's tech, there's depth, there's a casual scene, party scene, competitive scene. There's so much to this game, and I'm sure plenty of people have rolled their eyes 1,000 times at this point in this video, but hey, this really is just what I feel. It's one of my favorite games, top games of all time. Out of all the games released in the last decade, it very well might be my top game. You know, certain days I might feel another way, but today this is my top game. And that's it for this video. Let me know down below what you think. You know, last time y'all were pretty negative. There were some really hateful comments in there, and all I gotta say is, you know, if you're gonna be that way, at least tell me what your favorite game of the last decade was. Give me something good to read. But as always, we're going to have a secret code word if you made it to this part of the video. You know, you made it to the end, you listened to everything, comment shark as in what my profile picture is, and you'll get a nice heart from me. That's a little code word. But yeah, that's it. Hope you have a good day, evening, night, whatever the hell is closest to you.